Hello, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's T&E session covering the DOT Mass Transit Fund and CIP amendments. We'll also be following up on two items related to DOT from last week's session. The Mass Transit Fund discussion we'll have today will cover some very important issues pertaining to the near and long-term future of public transit connectivity across Montgomery County. Let me turn it over to Dr. Orland, unless any of my colleagues have comments they want to make. Okay, and welcome to Director Conklin, Deputy Directors Wolanen and Hen, and Chief Hibbert. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Orland.
We're also joined by Jamie Cook, Deputy Director of DGS, and some of his staff as well. What I'll do, there's a lot of information here about the budget that was recommended in March, which it's there for your reading. I'll skip over it in the interest of time. Just I want to point a couple things real quick. The executive's budget did recommend a net reduction of 2% back in March, and some areas where there are reductions are in fair share, call and ride, kids ride free, and seniors ride free. But it all has to do with how much use of those programs there is expected to be in FY22. It has nothing to do with the eligibility. So there's that. And there's a couple of additions. One is $300,000 for a triennial survey, which is required by MTA, and another $70,000 to start doing ride sharing promotion in White Oak. And there's a whole series of bullets on the bottom of page 3 which describe the kind of things they'll be doing with that money. So the first big issue really has to do with ride-on fares. You recall that a year ago, ride-on and Metrobus, this is on page 4. We've gone this far already. Ride-on and Metrobus have basically suspended fares. A lot of it had to do, in fact, most of it had to do with protecting the drivers, the operators, because the passengers had to get on the back of the bus and they couldn't be near their fare box. In January, by then, WMATA had actually outfitted the Metro buses so that they actually started taking passengers on board in the front, and they started charging. So they've been charging the $2 fare since January. Ride-on was not able to get the protection for the drivers quite as quickly. They basically had it in by about the end of March, and so the initial plan was that they would start charging the $2 for the regular fare and, of course, the discount fares too, starting on April 5th. Several council members and ultimately the county executive decided, well, why don't we just extend the ride-on fare holiday until the end of June? What wasn't done, in my mind, unfortunately, was that it really should have been extended to Metrobus as well. We've always treated bus riders in this county equally. For the last 15, 18 years, ever since we had our first program to discount fares differently than for buses than what WMATA was doing, which is kids ride free. We applied that to both Ride-On and Metrobus. We extended that to seniors ride free when that started about a decade ago. And then as those programs have expanded in scope, we've expanded that otherwise. But we haven't done that. The executive is recommending extending the fare holiday until October 1st, another 3 months, first 3 months of the fiscal year, at a cost of basically $4,230,000 in foregone revenue. This is one of several things which would be effectively paid for by ultimately by ARPA funds, which is designated for transit. What's really happening is the state, ARPA is going to the state. The state is supplanting its normal funds for some of its WMATA subsidy with the ARPA funds, passing on the savings to the two counties, and the county would use that money to supplant the normal mass transit fund money for the basic ride-on operations, and then freed up a little over $33 million, $33.5 million for additional transit initiatives. So that's how it flows through. So it'll show up in the CIP and the operating budget as mass transit funds, but really the cause of it is ARPA. So it doesn't really add to the county's budget in that respect. And he would want to, again, extend the fare holiday till October 1st, and also conduct a fare equity study to look at all the possibilities for how fares might change. Not just the basic fare, but also the special fares like for kids ride free, seniors ride free, et cetera. Have that done in time for rate changes on October 1st, which means the study really has to be done by Labor Day because it has to get transmitted to the council. We have to hold a public hearing on any changes because that's the law. And then, of course, for T&E and the council to deliberate as to what it is they want to do past that, and then have time for DOT to implement. So that's a very, very short time frame in September. My recommend, well, let me go to a couple other proposals that were made, at least for information to create, came from Councilmember Glass and Councilmember Reamer. Councilmember Glass asked for information about, this is on page 5, what would be the cost if we applied a free fare for ride-on and Metrobus all the time? And alternatively, what would it be if we made all the fares and ride-on Metrobus free on weekends? And thirdly, what if ride-on Metrobus were to charge half the fares they're charging now? So $1 instead of $2 for the base fare, 50 cents instead of $1 for seniors and disabled. What you see on page 5 are two sets of numbers. The first set of numbers is the additional cost to the FY22 operating budget, and those estimates are based on the current ridership, or what's projected for FY22 in terms of ridership, which is not full ridership pre-COVID. So you'll see that fare freeze all the time would cost another $17 million for ride-on in terms of foregone revenue, another $5.8 million in reimbursement to WMATA, and there would be some cost savings too because the collections function within ride-on could be less. So the net cost is $22.2 million. Although in each of these scenarios, we also give you what the DOT has provided, an estimate as to what it would be in the longer term, like an FY23 and each year beyond that, presuming we return to pre-COVID levels, when we would have higher ridership. Of course, then we'd have higher foregone revenue, and we could also have some more savings in costs. So you see it's $36.5 million a year if we did that. And then you see the other two alternatives, fare free for weekends, $7 million next year, $7.5 million for 23 on, and reduced fares all the time, $12.4 million, $17.1 million if it's all the time. Mr. Reamer had recommended applying a free fare to seniors ride free all the time. Right now, it applies 9:30 to 3 o'clock on weekdays and 8:30 to 4 p.m. on Saturdays, and this would essentially then apply to ride on a Metrobus at all times. And the cost of that is have a fiscal impact in FY22 of $949,000, just a little under $1 million. Given all this, my recommendation is as follows, that we follow the executive's lead, generally speaking, and that we have the fare holiday extended to October 1st. But in between now and October 1st, the study be done and be evaluated, and the council make a comprehensive decision on all the fares and have those go into effect October 1st or shortly after, if at all possible. With the exception that we should extend the fare holiday to Metrobus as soon as we can. The earliest we could start the fare holiday for Metrobus would be June 1st, because it takes a few weeks to work this out with WMATA. So we're talking about 4 months. And the cost of that would be a little over $2.5 million. And so that's my recommendation, is that we go with the executive, except we add $2.5 million to the budget to be able to reimburse Metrobus for their foregone revenue for a fare holiday that would run from June 1st until September 30th. And the next item having to do with restoring full ride-on service, I have a suggestion as to how to make up that money.
Thank you, Dr. Orland. I'm going to call on Councilmember Reamer in just a second, but I have a question and a comment. The question is, how has the reinstatement of the $2 fare in January affected ridership? On
Metrobus?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone from DOT would know.
Glenn, I know we've had this discussion year after year about if we have a fare holiday for ride-on, we have to match that out of our own pocket with Metrobus. I would just point out that they have a lot more funding than we do. They were in deficit and they just received $1 billion. I think we can keep this possibility on the table, but I do think we should just, and I talked to Mike Goldman about this, our rep on the WMATA board, I think we should write to them and have a conversation and say, look, we're making an investment of our tax dollars, our residents' tax dollars, in allowing rebuilding ridership and allowing our low-income residents generally to ride for free for an extended period of time. And we hope you'll match that with WMATA funds, because you should. They might have an issue of jurisdictional equity. If any other jurisdiction wants to put up their own money, that WMATA should welcome that. So I think we should ask. And if they don't, they don't, but we can always come back to it.
If I can comment on that, WMATA won't really make that decision. The end of the MDOT, since they pay the bills. It's the question is, will MDOT do it? And if they do it for Montgomery County, they'll need to do it for Prince George's County. Frankly, I think it's pretty doubtful, but we could ask. But I think in terms of this budget, unless you just don't want to do it, I think we have to assume that the county's going to have to pay for it. It's always been this way. And for example, most of the other, I can't think of another jurisdiction in the region right now that is discounting its own bus services. I know there's one jurisdiction that's maybe talking about doing it, but as of right now, I don't believe anybody else is.
Right, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't,
I'm not. I'm just saying.
I get them to match our commitment. Anyway, Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Thank you to the chair for that point. Even if it's a long shot, I think we ought to make the ask, and then maybe it becomes less of a long shot over time. And frankly, if the implication is that they have to do it in Prince George's too, great. Let's call Prince George's and get them to lean into this also.
And we have a rep on their board.
Perfectly happy to do it. So I do agree, and I'm glad to hear you talk to Mike Goldman about that. And I think it would be a great part of a broader strategy here. And we got to pursue that. So just wanted to turn to the ride-on fare, and just start by saying we got a lot of momentum on this issue last year, or was it 2 years? I'm not sure now, when we expanded ride-on for kids full-time. And I want to thank Councilmember Glass for his advocacy there, because he has been very effective in bringing that issue to the fore, and the council has been eager to respond. So as I've said before, it has made a very interesting impact in my family, where my son, as a 13-year-old, has been quite independent and able to take the bus at his own volition with his friends all the time. And I did the same thing at his age, although I don't think I had free fares, but it's a different life when you have independence through transportation, and it's fun to see it play out in such a personal way. But I think we ought to continue our march forward. Anytime we can take a discrete step, and I would like to propose that we add the funding for seniors and people with disabilities. I think substantially, because they really are a proxy for lower income riders and kind of non-choice riders for whom fares might make more of an impact on their budget. I like the idea of doing a broader study, and I know Metro is thinking about how they could do discounted fares for low income riders generally, which I would very much like to learn more about. And I don't know if there's a technology issue with ride-on that makes it hard for us to provide a customer-friendly fare discount program for lower income riders. We have this ability to come in and get a discounted pass, but it just doesn't seem like it's a really good system. If there is a technology-related solution that we need for a broader fare strategy, and I suppose that would be addressed in your study, then we need to know what that is, and we should be budgeting for that upgrade, whatever that is, at the earliest opportunity. But in general, I think I would say, if my colleagues would agree, we would do the seniors and people with disabilities ride free, right away. And then I do think we ought to keep on track with the full service reintroduction. I'm optimistic that by October we will have a larger share of the population is showing up to work in person in various ways and needs more service. So I think it would be wise for us to prioritize service first and foremost. And to the extent that we do have trade-offs, we want to try to avoid trade-offs between service and fares. But to the extent that we do, I think it makes sense to prioritize service while finding targeted ways to discount fares. So, I would tend to lean away from a full fare holiday and focus on service reintroduction, and then move quickly on seniors and people with disability fare reduction and expanding the hours. Again, I think there's a lot of folks who are taking a grocery store trip or going to a senior center. They're probably less choice riders and more, this is their mode of transportation. And, 10, 20, $50 a month might make a big difference in their budget. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass. Oh, I'm sorry. Director Conklin was trying to jump in, if you don't mind holding a sec. Director Conklin.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit more context. There is a lot of regional activity around equity-based and reduced fare programs. You've seen, I'm sure, in the press, the city of Alexandria's move for fare free on Dash. But again, that's a little different where they are doing it for their system, but not WMATA at this time. And there has been a little bit of a decoupling due to the pandemic between what the jurisdictions are doing independently and what WMATA is doing. So, Glenn is not wrong. We have always had a lockstep in fare policy. There are merits to that for sure, given where the service is located, but we are in a little bit of an unusual period still where there may be some flexibility to pursue them independently and try to get more regional pressure, as council members have suggested, to have a more consistent approach across the whole metro service area and how this is handled. In terms of the study, it is quick, but there's work underway already in Northern Virginia. I don't remember whether it's T or C. NVTA, I think, no, it's probably NVTC, is doing this work now, and it's our plan not to repeat their work, but to tailor what they've done to the issues in Montgomery County. And that's how we plan to approach it, to hit the timelines that we're talking about, rather than starting from whole cloth and trying to figure it out. So I think the options are open to you. They're well described in the packet, but I wanted to give that little bit broader lay of the land. And I do think, while I appreciate being in lockstep with WMATA, has been our plan and has been important for a long time, I do think there's a little bit of a risk in taking on obligations and taking the pressure off finding a regional solution that benefits a broader number of people and creates more consistency. Maybe not in the next 3 months, maybe not in the next 6, but in the year plus timeframe. So thank you for that, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the comments that you and Councilmember Raymer have made, and this committee and this council's support for transit equity, and that's really what we're talking about. And even Director Conklin, I appreciate the way you framed this as a regional effort. And while things might have been done a certain way, clearly across government, private sector, public sector, things changed because of the pandemic, and we have to recognize that. And quite frankly, if we could lead by example, then pressure might be exerted onto WMATA. From all the different jurisdictions who are moving in this direction, whether it is Alexandria or here in Montgomery County. And just to bring it down to the most basic level, just want to remind everybody who we're talking about here. And according to the OLO report, 47% of ride-on users earn less than $30,000 a year. And so it is absolutely transit equity that we're talking about. And the success of our previous efforts, be it Kids Ride Free and the services before that, showed that when we reduce barriers, we increase access. And for the environmental reasons, for transportation and road management reasons, we want more people in public transit. And that's why I had put forward my proposal for free fares all the time, which Director Conklin, as you noted, they are looking at in Alexandria and in other jurisdictions around the country and the world as well. And I felt it was really important to have that part of this conversation, because for the last year we've had free fares and it was not a normal time. But we have to remember that the people who were taking and continue to take our public transportation and are dependent on it are our frontline workers. They have not had the opportunity to work from home. So they are trudging from their homes and apartments in all manners of weather, in all manners of health levels, regardless of what we were told about COVID and the level that it was in our community. They still, day in and day out, had to take public transportation. And so we need to continue supporting them. And so the bottom line is that the $22 million that was determined for free fare all the time, I think that clearly, while this is a tough budget, and in the grand scheme of things, it is not a lot of money in the overall budget. I recognize there are trade-offs and there are a lot of priorities that we put forward in other areas. But as we look towards improving our access and really working towards even a more equitable transit program here, I am supportive of whatever those means are, whatever those avenues are. And I think Councilmember Reamer hit on a really good path forward. And, the free fares for seniors and people with disabilities continues moving us in that direction. And ultimately, that's my goal. That's our shared collective goal as well. And so again, I think it's important for everybody, especially those who support free fares, to know what the budget implication is, recognizing the budget situation that we are currently in. I will second Councilmember Reamer's proposal so that we can move forward with that. And then the second part of this conversation with regard to the frequency, I also recognize that we have way more ride-on users in Montgomery County than we do Metrobus users. And when we are looking to provide the most good for the most people in this budget situation, I think that we should go along with the county executive's proposal to bring back full service ridership as quickly as possible, because again, people are still dependent on it, and we need to do right by them so that they don't have to wait as long as they have been, and that their lives can get back to normal as well. And so with that, I'll yield back to you, Chair Hucker.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Orland.
Mr. Hucker, have you weighed on this? I mean, what will the committee? I heard Mr. Glass and Mr. Reamer say they're in favor of Mr. Reamer's proposal, as well as for seniors ride free, as well as the executive's proposal for a fair holiday for ride on only from July to September. What are your druthers?
I'm okay with that.
And in terms of the I guess the next question is, again, following the rules in terms of adding amendments that affect the operating budget over the executive, either the committee itself or the full council are going to have to find offsetting reductions. So we need a way of reducing the budget, either this budget or the entire budget, by $949,720. Do you care to make a recommendation on that today, or do you want to leave that to the full council to figure out? Yeah, I'm not add back the ride-on service quite as fast, but faster than what is in the packet. Again, Metrobus is only going to be at 85% for the entire fiscal year of 22, for the region, and we're going to be back under the executive proposal, back to 100% by October 1st. And so if you he set aside $3 million. Lost it already. About $3,570,000 of the mass transit funds from ARPA for this. If you were to cut that by $950,000, you wouldn't bring it back quite as fast, but it would be almost as fast. We can find out from DOT precisely what that means. That's a way of keeping this all within the committee, if you will, and within the transit budget. Alternatively, you could just turn to the full council and say, well, we'll have to find some cuts in the full council equivalent to this. Your choice.
Yeah, if I could help out with that, Glenn, it's not how much, at the end of that time period, the service is restored. It's the pace during that period at which we restore it. So you're not making a decision to reduce the service at the end point. It's, do we do more in May, more in September, more in...
Right.
So
correct. It's a matter
I'm
of
not
when.
sure that has that significant an impact to the public, and we have had a variety of different scenarios for that on our side, but give that to you for context. I don't have a specific, point in time what that means,
Yeah.
but the end of that period is the same.
Yeah, you have picks in September and in January. So right now, the pick in September, the changes in service would all happen. The rest of it would happen then. There's actually a change that's going to happen like next week, right, or very soon. But in addition to that, the one in September around Labor Day, and the question is whether you put off some of that until January. That probably would be enough to make up the difference of this $950,000 roughly.
Just for seniors and people with disabilities.
No, for the write. I'm talking about the write. Oh yes. Sorry. To cover that.
To cover that
revenue.
fair expense.
Correct. Actually, I would think the amount of money. This is maybe a detail I can work this out with DOT, but the money that's needed for to do that. I mean, in other words, the amount of money needed for the fair holiday from June to October for the full service somewhat overlaps with the free fares for the seniors, right? So that amount might be a little bit less because you're already providing free fares for seniors from between July 1st and October 1st by going with the executive's recommendation. So you're really talking about free fares for seniors beyond that from October 1st all the way through the end of June, right?
Say that again.
Okay, your proposal, Mr. Reamer, was to have free fares for seniors and disabled all the time between July and June, and that cost $949,000. The executive is recommending free fares for everybody, including seniors and disabled, between July 1st and September 1st. And so those two costs, the $949,000 for your proposal and the $3,570,000 for his proposal, it's not the sum of those two. It's a little bit less than the sum of those two because we're double counting a little bit. We can't figure this out right this second, but we can get the gist of it. We can work on it with
So
with
one
DOT in the
option
next.
could be to, move forward by a week or so, or like 2 weeks when the full free fare is instated, to accelerate it a little sooner in order to pay for full year free fare for seniors, people with disabilities, if I understand what you're saying. I think you seem to be alluding to that.
I'll try to make it more succinct. To keep the savings within the transit budget, the amount that would be needed to cover what you're proposing, Mr. Reamer, is probably a bit less than $949,000, because you're already counting free fares twice for seniors for that first 3 months. So again, maybe if the sense is that that the committee wants to do your proposal, it sounds like it is. In fact, you said it, but that you want to bring back the service a little bit more slowly than what the executive is, we'll figure out what that means. And the amount of savings needed for that will be something less than $949,000 for that part of the program. But I think, well, the real question for you, are you okay with bringing back the service a little less quickly than the executive to be able to cover this seniors right free?
I mean, the alternative would be to start charging fares a little sooner. That would be the alternative, right? But
we don't want that put a real crimp on your decision making, because even though Chris it's great that they're starting now, but my sense is we probably are not going to get recommendations from the executive until at the very earliest, maybe the end of July, and you have the summer recess. We have to advertise a hearing.
Yeah.
You want to deliberate on it as soon as you get back from Labor Day. Tell me if I'm wrong, Chris.
No, we can't work faster. You're correct. I mean, it'll be a press to have it on that schedule, but that's what we are working to do.
Right. So I don't think you'd want to accelerate the time when you change fares. I think October 1st is an aggressive enough goal.
No, I was.
I'm sorry.
We're talking past each other, I think. I was saying that we could pay for it by resuming fares sooner like 2 weeks sooner, rather than October 1st fare reintroduction, September 15th. But
No,
we
but
could say no.
the,
Or maybe I'm
no, yeah, the point would be you want to do the study to understand what those fares would be, and then then you need a few weeks for the council to
I see.
advertise a hearing, hold a hearing.
All right.
Yeah.
Then maybe we should balance it on the services then, I guess. All right.
Okay. I'll work out with DOT what those numbers are, but it'll be pretty close to what the executive recommended. Not that much different. And okay, that sounds like
Sorry,
that's
Mr. Chair,
unanimous.
I know we're trying to move expeditiously.
I know, Glenn, but there's no reason we couldn't use ARPA funds too, right, for the gap?
We are using ARPA funds. We're using the same ARPA fund. This is county funds which are made available because ARPA funds are. It's a knee bone connected to the thigh bone kind of thing, but it's the same amount of money. Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Beck is trying to get in.
I just want to ask a question. I was unclear about the decision on the Metro bus fare.
They don't want to do it.
Okay, that's why you were saying 900,000 instead of a lot more. Okay.
Yeah. Just recall there are 30% of the people in the county use the Metro bus. 30% of the bus riders are Metro bus riders. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. I think you made your decision on that.
Wait, just to be clear there. So you were saying if we want to provide funding to Metro so that Metro is also free during the same period of time, it would cost how much?
$2.5 million.
$2.5 million. And we're saying we just, as much as we like to do that, we just don't know where we're going to get that money from. I think, right? That's what we're saying as a committee. And so we're just stuck, and we recognize that it is an inequity, and it's not what we want, but it's what we got.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And the only other part of this, I'm sorry, Mr. Gertner.
Well, and who bears all the responsibility for the inequity? I would just suggest that WMATA bears an equal share of the inequity, and that's why we should ask them to step up. We're making a commitment, and they should too.
You're exactly right, Mr. Chair.
And again, we're really talking about MDOT, but that's right. The other part of this again is the equity study, which is $175,000, I believe, that the executive is recommending. So is that committee okay with that? Silence.
I'll say I'm fine with it, but I'm not quite sure what more there is to study. We know what the routes are. We know who the users are. We know the users on those routes. So what is the study?
Chris?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of background. What the other jurisdictions are doing is trying to find a path towards either a needs-based or other fare program that would encompass most likely both WMATA and county services, that would look at options like you have just recommended, senior and disabled kids. But are there other ways to do that? DC had a pilot that was going to get underway that was kind of based on income threshold. NVTC is working on these different concepts as well. So the idea was not so much what are the routes, what are the services, but is the way that we're providing fare subsidies the way that we should be doing it? And can we get more uniform across with what other jurisdictions are doing for their fare subsidy programs?
So it's more of a proposal or a white paper, really, with an outline as to how to move forward.
Yes, exactly. All of the options that have been suggested, what is the recommended path forward for the longer term?
Right. Okay.
But it would also be specific, because again, it would feed into what your new rate schedule that you'd be approving before October 1st for October 1st. So it makes specific recommendations to what to charge for each of these. Okay. There's a whole section in the report about racial equity and social justice. You might recall that you really took that up last year when you reviewed the Title VI report that DOT is required to do every few years from the Federal Transit Administration, which goes into quite a bit of detail. And I just summarized some of the information from that in the packet. And moving to the Mass Transit Fund CIP amendments, The executive sent over revision to his proposal for the Master Leases Transit Radio System Replacement Project. That's a little bit of good news. The estimate for the second year cost was going to be $1.75 million. Now the cost has been reduced to $1.017 million, so savings of about $730,000. So I'm recommending approval of that. That would completely change over the ride-on radio system. I'll just keep moving unless there's okay. The ride-on bus restructuring study, recall you added $1.5 million to the CIP last year for that. However, the executive is wishing to show that in his operating budget. So it's in his operating budget recommendation. So we don't need the CIP amendment anymore. So the CIP amendment would come out. The CIP amendment would remove it from the CIP. It's all in the operating budget. Same scope, same cost. Next issue is the ride-on bus fleet. The executive is recommending adding about $8.7 million to that program. Again, this is another one of these amounts that are being paid for through this, ultimately by ARPA funds. And he wants to buy 10 more electric buses in the FY22 budget. We had bought 10 in the FY21 budget, and there were 4 that were bought before then. It takes about a year for the buses to be delivered. And this is in addition to, so they bring up the number of electric buses bought in FY22 out of that budget, but to 20, and there would continue to be 10 in FY23 and 10 in FY24. And you see in the middle of page 10 a comparison of the cost per bus, the various buses that we have, a comparison of petroleum use, comparison of greenhouse gas emissions, and you can see that except for the cost, the electric buses are much preferable to the others in case of greenhouse gas emissions, and with the exception of compressed natural gas, much better than all the rest in terms of petroleum use. All the buses are housed at the Brookville depot because that's where the infrastructure is to be able to do that. So it only serves routes down county right now. The buses that we have and the buses that we would be having without any further change. The General Services has entered into a P3 agreement to basically improve that delivery system of electricity in a more reliable way, in a more substantial way, also at Brookville. And they're here that they can speak to what that is. And there's an attachment in the packet which summarizes what that would do. Mr. Reamer is recommending, in addition to what the executive is recommending, 2 things. And I'll just summarize it, Mr. Reamer. You can talk more about it as soon as I just summarize it, if you would. One is to add money for 10 additional electric buses in FY23. That's instead of a certain number of non-electric buses, hybrids and diesels. So it's not any more buses. It's just making more of those buses that we'd buy in FY23 with electric as opposed to the other types. And he's also recommending that the DGS work now to expand this pilot's P3 program to the MTOC, to the up-county depot, so that ultimately these 10 buses that he's recommending adding electric the fleet would be allocated to MTOC to begin to provide electric bus service in the up-county. And given the timing, it takes about an extra 2 years to get that, if the DGS were starting this now, an extra 2 years to get that up and going up at MTOC, and that would be more or less in sync with when the buses would arrive from any order that's made in FY23. So his recommendation in terms of the 10 additional buses would have an additional cost of $3,860,000 in FY23. Because it's FY23, you don't have to follow the rule about finding an offsetting reduction. We'll have to figure that out as part of CIP reconciliation, obviously, but at least in terms of the way Mr. Hucker's guidance is on the entire budget, it doesn't affect FY23. And so with that, Mr. Reamer would like to talk some more about it. And again, we have the folks from DGS here who can speak more about this the P3 program, as well as the implications of this for both Brookville and MTOC.
Great. Well, thank you. You said it fully, and I appreciate that.
Sorry.
Thanks for your help in devising this proposal, and shout out to Tommy Hybor on my staff who has been working hard on this for weeks. And we as my colleagues will remember, we added 10 electric buses, I think it might have been, to the reconciliation list, and we couldn't fund it a few years ago because we had to prioritize service restoration because there had been service cuts in the proposed budget. And, we've just got to get out of that mode. We've got to add electric buses every year, all the time, until we fully transform this fleet. And of course, the idea that all the electric buses, you can understand how, from a legacy systems perspective, it would work out that way. But from a community perspective, having all the electric buses in the down county, Brookville Depot is not in Brookville. It's on Brookville Road in Silver Spring. That's not tenable. So we should outfit MTOC, that depot, with facilities for electric buses, and frankly, we need to outfit all of them. We need to have a countywide strategy, for all this infrastructure. So certainly would appreciate my colleagues' support. As Glenn said, it's not this year's funds, and we are up against some pretty daunting circumstances with the capital budget. And we can only hope for the best here. But, if we had been able to add those buses before, we would have been reducing emissions. This year, the county's emissions would have been lower than they otherwise are. And I think we ought to take these kinds of tangible steps whenever we have the opportunity to do so. And 10 electric buses for the up county would be, I think, really welcome and part of our overall commitment to reducing emissions and fighting climate change. So there you have it.
There you have it. Mr. Geis?
Just to update the committee on where we're at, the Brookville microgrid charging infrastructure is in the approval process and permitting process now. Work is anticipated to begin in October and will be completed next year. Since this is the first time we've done this, the plan has always been to apply lessons learned from doing this and immediately follow on the heels of the Brookville with the MTOC microgrid charging infrastructure. The Brookville charging infrastructure will be able to accommodate 70 buses once it's completed. So the schedule we're on and the council is proposing is certainly achievable. At MTOC, we currently have a couple of charging stations that can charge 3 buses each, and there exists the existing Pepco infrastructure to install those additional charging stations in the bus parking garage area very quickly. There's no challenge with doing that. We can. The obvious idea, though, is to lower the cost through the installation of a microgrid that also builds in resiliency, so that in the event of a grid failure or challenges, brownouts and the like, the charging infrastructure still exists independent of that. So the plan is to follow on the heels of the Brookville microgrid with an MTOC microgrid through a public-private partnership. However, as I was just saying, we can install charging stations at MTOC with appropriate funding.
Quick question on the microgrid.
Yeah.
What is the energy source? Is this a solar microgrid like
Yes.
at Public Safety Headquarters?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, it'll be a complete canopy over the parking structure, and it's the same approach that we'll apply at MTOC.
Awesome. And thank you, DGS, for your work. I know you were very active in the process of assessing whether this was viable and how it was and where it fit in your plans. So
yeah, we're real thrilled with it. I think we've got a good partner, and we've already got them. We've already tasked the Brookville partner with looking at the feasibility and what's involved in doing the same thing at MTOC. So we're in the preliminary design stages at MTOC already.
cool.
How large is the microgrid?
Chris Brown, I think you're online, if you can unmute, and what's the total megawatt output?
So the microgrid at Brookville is 2 megawatts of solar, and it also has grid energy storage in the form of batteries. And then it has a generation from natural gas, which is convertible to a cleaner fuel source over time. So it's about 5 megawatts in total of energy capacity there.
Yeah, one of the other unique aspects when the buses are out operating, the grid infrastructure, the solar infrastructure is continuing to generate power, so we'll have battery storage on site as well.
How often do they use the natural gas fuel source for the grid, and is that cleaner than charging from the Pepco grid?
Yes, considerably cleaner than charging from the Pepco grid, and will be based on the renewable portfolio standards for quite some time in the future. The generators are anticipated to run fairly continuously, and the benefit there is that this sort of setup gives us a good amount of cost certainty around the electricity pricing, which we would not otherwise have from buying directly from the grid as well. So,
right,
another added benefit.
Cool. Love hearing from the experts at DGS. You guys really know what you're doing. Appreciate it.
We're working hard at it.
Why is it electric buses have petroleum use?
Have petroleum use?
In the grid.
The estimates here are based on not only the use of the power by the buses, but where does the electricity come from? And so a lot of the electricity comes from plants that burn oil. It's the full amount of energy that's created. So there is some energy that comes from places other than just electricity itself to create electricity.
Just
as a clarification of that, the county does, through its renewable energy credits, purchase 100% of its electricity through wind generation.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's zero. Then
those are credits.
Those are credits. That's
we still burn fossil fuels,
right?
Which is we still burn them and we still consume them, but we offset that with these credits. There's a point I was raising earlier about the fleet. We are still consuming gasoline in our fleet, and we really need to phase that out completely, because there's public benefit in buying offsets and being carbon neutral, but it would be actually better to be carbon zero rather than carbon neutral.
And we completely agree with that. That's why we do have a strategy. We're not purchasing fossil fuel vehicles. We're even piloting the new Ford Mach-E electric police car. We've actually been in the forefront of working with Ford for that deployment. We're also going to be using some of those for DOT supervisory fleet staff. So we are implementing electric vehicle purchases as the rule now in all of our vehicle replacements where we can. We're actually looking at piloting some Class 2 and 3 electric vehicles for, like, the library truck that delivers and redistributes books around the county. The next vehicle purchase for libraries is going to be an electric truck. So, and if you look at ranges for vehicles, none of the county's fleet vehicles travel more than 100, 150 miles a day. So our range is less of a concern as it is capacity and obviously cost.
Chair Hucker, if I could just offer a couple other things. The vehicle purchase that's outlined in the CIP as proposed here about hits the natural number of routes we have that can be served by these. So the Reimagine Ride-On study is right in line with this work to figure out how to get more of our routes suitable for service by electric vehicles. And I'm really excited to give a little foreshadowing. We are beginning to work with David and his team on looking at hydrogen fuel cell options so that we have quicker refueling and better range performance from some of these vehicles. And it may also be more suitable for some of the heavy duty fleet. So there's a lot going on in this space, and I think what Councilmember Reamer has proposed is directly in line with the objectives to green this fleet, and really appreciate his recommendation here.
Yeah, just adding on to Chris and the Mutual Appreciation Society. Chris, I appreciate his drive and vision over at DOT to do this. We are looking at converting the natural gas fueling station at MTOC into a hydrogen fueling station. That preliminary engineering analysis is also getting underway so that we're ready, and we want to be very aggressive with this. We're looking at other fleets in the country. City of Long Beach has introduced the dual renewable fuels of both hydrogen and electric, and not to a large extent, but they are. And from what we're hearing in the industry, particularly with the microgrid approach at our depots, it really is a leading initiative, and we've got a lot of people watching us for the successful outcome that we anticipate. So it's the county should be proud of the initiatives that are underway.
Dr. Worland?
Okay. So is the committee in agreement with Mr. Reamer's proposal? Is it unanimous?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next is on page 11, the Burtonsville Park and Ride improvements. Mr. Harker's worked quite a bit on this. The General Assembly has approved two, I guess they used to be called bond bills, one for $500,000, one for $4.5 million, basically to support parking garage or parking expansion at the Park and Ride in Burtonsville. Probably it would be a garage. The executive is recommending programming the $500,000 now for FY22 for the design of that facility, as well as perhaps some improvements, ancillary improvements along Old Route 29 itself, and not program the other $4.5 million yet. The purpose of the $500,000 is to do the planning and design to understand what the scope and cost of the garage would be. And so presumably in the next CIP, FY23-28, there would be money allocated for that. $4.5 million is a guesstimate as to what the cost might be, but it might be more, might be less. We'll see. In addition to that, there was a bond bill of $3.5 million that would go to the Burtonsville Shopping Center itself. Part of the purpose of this garage would be not only support park and ride increases that are expected from the flash service over time, but also perhaps to support that Burtonsville Shopping Center, which is doing pretty poorly right now. And again, the $3.5 million that would go to directly the shopping center from the state should help in that regard as well. So I'm recommending concurring with the executive's proposal, and Mr. Harker wants to add anything on this.
Sure. You're right, Glenn. Yeah, I've spent an enormous amount of time on that this year. There is really exciting progress I feel like we're making. I don't want to jinx it by even talking about it too much, but we've had a 10-year logjam there where we've had the abandoned shopping center at Burtonsville Crossing, a covenant and preventing them from signing a new lease with a grocer, and that is all across the street from our basically vacant park and ride lot at the northern terminus of the BRT that we were able to stand up this year. So after the previous administration, I think, rejected like 14 redevelopment plans there. I've had a lot of meetings with Edens as recently as yesterday, and like a dozen meetings now at least. And they've committed at least $5 million of investment into the shopping center. They're working with us to either try to extinguish the covenant or bring in another smaller grocer that would fit the terms there, or to move one onto our park and ride property. And with this, the great success our state legislators have had in winning state money to pay for the structured parking, that allows us to free up space in the park and ride for redevelopment while meeting the requirement that state has for us to retain that number of parking spaces, which is only going to, the need for which will only grow as the BRT ridership grows and potentially we connect it with Howard County at some point. So I'm excited about where we are. Montgomery College, of course, is doing a feasibility study now to figure out whether they could put a fourth center, which hopefully will become a campus with state approval in East County, in White Oak or Burtonsville, and they could be part of this solution as well. But I'm really excited about the progress we've made this past year and want to keep this moving ahead. So, ask you to support the county exec's recommendation here.
If I could just weigh in, we're all really excited about the proposals. Daisy's very excited in the background, but not wanting to jinx it, as you said, Chair Hucker. I know that you and your team put a lot of work into this, and hopefully these improvements will help improve the overall commercial situation in Burtonsville. So,
thank you.
Okay.
I'm really on board. I'm glad you're doing that careful work, and it's a process, but you gotta be driving it. So I'm glad you're doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next project is the BRT on Route 355. To date, the council's programmed $18 million for its planning and preliminary engineering. Preliminary engineering won't be completed until FY23, the end of FY23. The executive is actually recommending accelerating that by 6 months from what the council had approved in CIP last year. They believe they can get it done by then. And we should be getting from DOT sometime this summer, I'm told, finally a recommendation on a preferred alternative. Recall that 2 years ago, we had a big work session. The executive said he wanted one more time to understand what folks in the private sector were doing and other parts of the country were doing in terms of these kinds of situation. And I think they're ready to come back sometime this summer with a preferred alternative, which they will then flesh out the next 2 years. Through another state bond bill, however, we're receiving another $6 million that can be used towards planning, design, construction, whatever, of the 355 BRT. And so the executive is recommending showing that $6 million, showing an additional $6 million in FY24, which would be for the design, the final design of the first segment or two of 355, yet to be determined what is that segment, where is that segment or segments. And he's recommending allocating the state aid across the 3 years, $1.5 million in 22, $1.5 million in 23, and $3 million in 24, which would offset county funding. My recommendation on this is to agree with the executive's scope and timing for these studies, but I have two further recommendations. First of all, to show the state money earlier, instead of being 1.5, 3, to be 3.5 in 22 and 2.5 in 22. In 24, and that's for reasons I'll explain in the next project, frees up some resources for those 2 years. And secondly, to fund the $6 million in FY24 with general obligation bonds. Final design is usually funded with bonds because at that point you made a decision to build a project. The reason why the $6 million is being added for design, even though preliminary engineering isn't finished, is that my understanding is that to apply for certain types of federal aid, we need to be able to show that we're programming the funds for design as well. And so this is part of being eligible for getting federal funds to help pay for the part of the 355. So with those two, and this is my recommendations are on page 12, but with those two revisions, I'm recommending approval of the executive's proposal for the 355 BRT. Again, it doesn't change the scope or the timing. It just changes the what type of money is used in each of those 3 years.
Getting a thumbs up from Councilmember Glass. Councilmember Reamer has a question.
So how come it's only $6 million? Is that the most that you could actually expend in this project, or?
That's what we got in the bond bill. Maybe Chris or someone else from the DOT could speak to why that money, why that amount.
I believe that was taking us to what we thought was sufficient for completing design on what were likely to be the most beneficial segments to move forward. But Joanna has a lot more detail on this than I do.
Okay. Joanna?
Yes. Sorry, I was turning on my video and audio. That's correct. We feel that that's sufficient to take at least a portion of the corridor. We don't believe it's what we would need for final design for the entire corridor, but it will allow us to take most likely the more infrastructure heavy pieces through final design.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? And if not, what's the committee's druthers?
Sorry, now I'm confused. We're on page
12.
12, and we're talking about the 6 million.
Let me summarize again. The executive is recommending adding $6 million to this project over what's already approved. This would be in FY24, and that money would be for final design of the first segment or two of the 55 BRT. The 55 BRT is over 20 miles long, so this doesn't begin to design all of it, but it designs the first sections that would be built, whatever those are.
And those are those in the White Flint area, roughly?
Undetermined at this point, unless DOT has
It should be. I think that was a bigger conversation about rebuilding in White Flint because we need that urban context there. Is that what, Joanna, is that what you were also envisioning here? I mean, you seem to have a general idea about where this is likely to be.
Yeah, I mean, the cost estimate is based on an assumption that we would be designing the White Flint segment, at least as part of the first segment going forward.
Okay.
Councilmember Reamer, maybe more than that, but you'll have the opportunity to weigh in on what the limits of that are.
Okay, great. And then, I mean, yeah, the White Flint segment is not that big. Okay, so Glenn, you're saying you recommend funding recordation?
Say right now it's funded with recordation tax premium. I'm saying in FY22 and 23, spend the state aid sooner. In other words, have that supplant county funding in those 2 years. Just again, it doesn't change the amount we spend in any year. It doesn't change the scope at all. It just says the kind of money we spend in each of those years. That frees up county funds in FY22 and a certain degree in 23 as well. And then to use GO bonds instead of recordation tax premium and state aid in FY24. So you're using the same amount of state aid. We're using still $6 million less in county funding, but that county funding would be $6 million in FY24 would be bonds, and the rest of it in 22 and 23 would be recordation tax premium. I wouldn't get hung up on that. The key is that again, the scope and the cost of the project are the same.
Any comment from the executive branch on that?
I think it's all just a matter of how it plays out in reconciliation when you're going to want the timing on the various funding sources, honestly. This might get undone in a couple of weeks when you reconcile, or it may actually help the reconciliation.
I see. So it's like an option.
Yeah. And it feeds directly into my recommendation for the next project in terms of
DOT. The important part is the definition of the scope and the use of the expanded capacity provided by the state aid, not so much the funding sources for the various phases.
Right.
Okay. So which one of these do you recommend then? You've got two options.
Both. No, those aren't options. They're both recommendations.
Gotcha.
I'd recommend you do both.
Sounds good.
Mr. Hucker, Mr. Glass.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. The next project is the bus rapid transit system development. This was not put forward as an amendment, but you do have a recommendation from Dan Wilhelm of the Greater Colesville Citizens Association, which was actually supported by a letter from LabQuest yesterday that you received. And then I have a recommendation as well. Mr. Wilhelm's recommendation is that we add funds to the CIP for starting planning for the Randolph Road bus rapid transit line. The preliminary engineering for this would cost, according to DOT, $1.5 million and would take 2 fiscal years to do. And it would be part of this umbrella project because all project planning is done within this particular PDF. I'm not recommending doing that. the master plan for the Randolph Road BRT would just have buses running in traffic. There would be improvements, of course, the special bus stops, the special buses, some transit signal priority, which would make the buses and the fewer stops for those buses faster than a normal ride on a metro bus, but it would still be slower than with cars. It also doesn't connect. It doesn't go through areas which have very high density, so it's not a something which should be, frankly, I think, a high priority in terms of where to invest BRT dollars compared to some of the other routes. And I'm suggesting instead what we might ask DOT to explore, not fund yet, but to explore, is whether or not some kind of either Metro extra service on Randolph Road, which have fewer stops, and maybe some transit signal priority could go in there, or ride-on extra service like you have in 355 today, as opposed to planning for a full-blown BRT on 355 on Randolph Road. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Whether it's you or probably Chris, what do we know about ridership projections on Randolph versus North Bethesda versus anything else? I'm just a little. My understanding of North Bethesda would be we already have, I think, ride-on service around that corridor. Montgomery Mall, I don't know, malls haven't been doing that well, and we have high car ownership in that corridor. Whereas maybe these two shouldn't be pitted against each other. Maybe we should be doing both. But I wonder if we would, be smarter to do ride-on in North Bethesda, ride-on extra in North Bethesda, where we already have service. And I'm wondering about the ridership numbers, Chris. Yeah.
I would have to pull out the master plan. I don't have that handy, but I think your initial statement there that pitting these against each other is not necessarily the right idea. And in some ways, they actually work together. Randolph Road and the North Bethesda ones both terminated, I think. And they serve very different purposes, obviously. The North Bethesda Transitway is, a lot of the right-of-way has been dedicated already through the Rock Spring Business Park, and it seems
right.
The redevelopment of that 90s era land use and the connection to the 270 spur on the Tysons that is under study in the corridor forward plan and has been represented by MDOT in a lot of the planning for the managed lanes project. So that's really the justification for that, and that's probably the longest lived of these corridors because its recommendation for that lake well predates the corridor functional master plan, corridor functional master plan from 2015.
Could you lean a little closer, Chris?
I'm sorry. And Randolph Road is an important cross-county linkage, and in some ways supplements that project so that the Wheaton area is then connected to White Flint and those other things I talked about. And there's a whole set of relationships on the east end of that corridor between New Hampshire Avenue and the US 29 corridor. So I think they're both really important projects from our perspective. I think starting 3 at the same time in the same year is probably more than we would want to do. And that, it creates a capacity issue in the CIP later on when they all finish at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that I kind of side with Glenn here that starting all 3 at the same time isn't the best idea, but if you were to pick and choose, I don't know that I would give you a strong recommendation between Randolph and North Bethesda, except North Bethesda's already been planned to start.
Yeah, can I add a couple things? First of all, North Bethesda is actually in the CIP now for planning in 24 and 25. Randolph Road's not. So to a certain extent, the council's already prioritized North Bethesda over not just Randolph Road, but University Boulevard and Georgia Avenue, the other BRT routes that are not yet programmed. Secondly, the real rationale, the reason why I'm recommending accelerating that money, it's not new money, it's accelerating it, is to be able to link up with the I-270 West Spur when the managed lane project is now planned to open. The state is moving forward full bore on this, as you know, the managed lane study, and part of that is to provide a direct ramp from Westlake Terrace in the southbound direction to I-270, as you have a northbound one now, or going to the north end now. And so with the North Bethesda Transway starting planning in FY22 rather than 24, there's a very good chance that we could be in a position, if funding is added in a couple of years to do design and then construction of North Bethesda Transway, to have that open in time for when the managed lanes would open. And that would produce a rapid transit route from the Red Line, whether it's White Flint or Grosvenor, because the master plan said it could start in either place, through Rock Spring Park, which the council in the past has said they want to do things to reinvigorate Rock Spring Park as well, but then also to Virginia and to and from Virginia, which we don't have that link today. And so that's my rationale for trying to accelerate that. And the only reason for not recommending Randolph Road now is what I'd said and Chris said, which is also starting 3 in 1 year. Plus, what about University Boulevard? What about George Avenue? These are also corridors that are planned for BRT. And frankly, they have, there's more transit ridership potential in those areas than there is even for Randolph Road. And Mr. Friedson supports my recommendation too, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, Glenn, I'm not sure how many decisions we should be basing on the state's proposed schedule for the managed lanes project, with this, which this council and the county executive have a lot of concerns about, and is likely to be tied up in court for quite a while. If it does get the federal approval, that it's very, I don't know that it's likely to get. Mr. Reamer.
Okay, well, I guess I'm coming at it from a different angle. So, first of all, I think I really appreciate the advocacy from our East County community leaders, because we've needed you to help lead the argument and lead the battle, frankly, to keep the county focused on these critical priorities. And, we worked together several months ago to revise the proposed study for Route 29 and make sure we're doing the right study there. And we've got New Hampshire in the queue. I think that 29 and New Hampshire are the major routes that we've got to focus on from a big investment strategy. We as Glenn said, we have master planned Randolph Road as mixed traffic. Doesn't mean that we couldn't do some signal priority, some enhanced stations, but it's not intended to, it's expected to be something where we're going to tear up the road and rebuild lots of the road in order to add lanes and so forth. But, the massive traffic that I think we want to impact here is on 29 in New Hampshire, and having a really smooth functioning system that operates on those roads is going to be absolutely essential to these counties. So I think we've done a really good job prioritizing those two projects. And I just tend to think that Randolph it will be likely adequate for the, long, short term as mixed traffic with some, relatively modest enhancements. That's certainly what the modeling showed. So first of all, I just think we ought to keep our focus on 29 and New Hampshire and move those as aggressively as we can. As for North Bethesda, I do think we should keep it on track for precisely the reasons that Glenn outlined. I think it's important for us to be aggressive about having a transit strategy for that project. And, the council did support the inclusion of dedicated entrances and exits in that project for bus rapid transit, so that there would be a more meaningful transit inclusion. And so I think it would be in keeping or in good faith for us to be moving quickly to match our infrastructure to that objective, and ensuring that, to the extent that this project moves forward, which I don't know that it won't keep its timeline, I don't know, that there is a really strong transit part of it. And the North Bethesda Transit Way facilitates a rapid connection to the Rockville Pike, from that corridor. So I think it's really important. I think we do need it, and it will help revitalize a bunch of areas. So, I think we got to execute on all fronts here, and totally appreciate the coming, raising this to our attention, and we did work together to beat the drum on 29 and get that into shape. And frankly, if that study had been done correctly, we could be putting more funding towards advancing that now. And it's kind of frustrating that we're not able to do that. But in any event, all to say, I support council staff's recommendation.
Councilmember Glass.
We started today's conversation by talking about ride-on and Metro bus and transit equity, and that's how I look at this conversation as well. So clearly, this North Bethesda project being in the CIP, being put there a number of years ago. I'm curious as to what the rationale for that was, right? Because I'm not aware of a whole lot of traffic congestion along Rockledge, per se. And if it was to support the businesses there, the large employers like Marriott, they're not there. They're moving to downtown Bethesda. And so I think it might require taking another look at what the original goal was. And I agree absolutely with Councilmember Reamer that 29 in New Hampshire should continue being a focus, looking at where ridership is, looking at what the need is, and the rationale for Randolph, while it might not be ready just yet, that east-west connection is so vitally important. And tying it back to the comment that Councilmember, that Chair Hucker just referred to with Montgomery College, one of the reasons that Montgomery College is looking at East County is because residents there have a hard time getting across to Rockville and to the other campuses. And so I'll turn it back to you, Director Conklin or anybody else, to share with me why this North Bethesda project is moving forward, and then even Dr. Orland, why you think it should be accelerated given what the landscape currently is.
If I could, the reason why they went into the CIP, it was a few years ago, was twofold. One was you mentioned it, to activate Rock Spring Park, because Rock Spring Park was doing very poorly. In fact, we had a shuttle service that ran for a few years to try to do that, which actually wasn't very successful because it was slow and didn't get into ridership. But the other is to actually connect to the direct ramp that goes from Westlake Terrace to the north, to and from the north on 270, so that there's that possibility for express buses that would be coming down on the HOV lanes could then get off on that direct ramp to Westlake Terrace, go through Rock Spring Park, and get over to the Red Line. Whether that was Grosvenor or White Flint, again, that part of it hasn't been determined yet. That was the twofold reason.
Dr. Rowland, let me just stop you real quick, because you quickly glanced over an assumption, or what I believe to be an assumption, that the shuttle bus didn't work because it wasn't quick enough, or it didn't work because people didn't want to take it. They didn't want to go to one of the Red Line stops and then take it to get to the Marriott campus or any of those other campuses.
That's fair. For whatever reason, the additional service was not successful.
What was the
sorry?
What was the ridership?
I'd have to dig it out. It was a couple years ago now, but it was
decisions if we don't know what the ridership or the projected ridership is.
The ridership for that was very low. Right. And then the number of additional riders was in the order of maybe a dozen or more per day.
But with better service, we would expect more riders?
Yes, particularly if it, again, this is the thing, where if it connects to those direct ramps and there's service that's either coming off of 270, both from the north and hopefully from the south, if the direct ramp is provided to the managed lanes, depending on how fast that happens. And
I'm sorry, Glenn. I thought you were
there may not be managed lanes, Glenn. We don't have any managed lanes.
No, I understand that. The council and executive's letter supports going forward with that. And you're right about the lawsuits or whatever. That could delay things quite a bit. And of course, we don't know what's going to happen with this project either. Even if we accelerate the planning, there are things that are problems. And if we find in 2 years that, and we're just doing the planning at the stage, if we find in 2 years that the managed lane project more or less disappears, then the pressure to do the final design and construction funds for North Bethesda Trans A would largely go away. But you miss the opportunity to possibly connect to the managed lanes if it opens on time. That's the point. You're eliminating the capability of making that connection when you could, at the earliest you could do it.
To step away from the managed lanes component for just a second, the other major benefit of this is linking those office and the large regional mall to red line service, which is currently, yes, you can do it, but it's not as obvious how you do it if you're not a frequent bus user. So that it would increase the market potential of those properties as a result. And I did find some of the ridership work from the countywide transit corridors functional master plan. And on a ridership per mile basis, it was the second highest performing BRT corridor. So I think it had that rationale for being added early, as well as likely to have one of the highest cost benefit ratios of the BRT.
The North Bethesda was second highest, not
and having a lot of the right of way already dedicated when Rock Spring Business Park was built was another component of it. So was that
based on Marriott still being there?
I'm sorry?
Was that based on Marriott's previous location?
It was, I think this plan predated the Rock Spring plan, so it probably did assume that being a large office building rather than a different use. So those different uses aren't allergic to transit either. If that's transitioning to a large senior living community, then having that transit access isn't a bad element either. So there was a lot of justification for why it was programmed. Whether all that warrants acceleration or not is up to you today, but it wasn't arbitrary that project was in there.
So Director Conklin, I think you cut through all the traffic here right now in your response, quite frankly, bad pun intended. And so what you just hit on is it's not about 495 and 270, and it's not about, who's there now or who was there. It's about the economic development potential. And it's about what happens to that mall. And we know that I think the very first vote I took on the council was Councilmember Reamer's ZTA to allow for residential. Do I remember that correctly, Councilmember Reamer? I think so. To allow for transformation to take place at that mall, and clearly those commercial hubs, the buildings, those campuses are changing because Marriott's left and a few others are there, but we're rethinking that area as well. So the argument that's being pitched, or should have been pitched, was if we want to transform that area and increase the taxable base and increase the viability, that this is an important component. I can get behind that, right? That is important. And so I'll stop talking and I'll support the motion to do that.
And I'm sorry, just to be clear, I'm not trying to undercut Glenn's argument. I'm just saying there's more.
No. I'm willfully telling you which argument was more sustainable and more spoke to me better. So.
And I have no pride of argument. Whatever, if you support it, you support it. So, Mr. Hucker.
Okay.
Is it 3-0 or 2-1?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. The next is BRT on Beersville Road. Is again with this ARPA funds available, makes available $4.5 million for the final design of Beersville Road BRT that would happen in 22 and 23. The planning is almost done, this is the first BRT route that we actually started planning years ago. So I recommend approval. Okay. The next is second to last one, bus priority lanes. Again, with some of the ARPA funds, $1,250,000 the executive wants to spend on minor projects to improve bus priority in areas of the county. And in FY22, he's recommending this $1,250,000 for three sub projects. One on Colesville Road and near the Silver Spring Metro Station. one on several streets in the vicinity of the Germantown Transit Center, and the other would be in Wheaton on Veersville Road, close to the metro station there. The project will not only include bus priority lanes, but also include some ancillary improvements such as passenger boarding and lighting betterments, enhanced bus stops, and other similar capital improvements. I recommend approval of this money in an FY22 with a couple minor changes. One is to change the title of the project because it's more than just priority lanes. I would say bus priority program minor projects, sort of similar to the sidewalk program minor projects, the bikeway program minor projects. And just a very minor thing in the coordination section of the PDF that should mention the State Highway Administration, because two of these three are on State Highway. Now, earlier today, we also received an update from Director Conklin with regards to something the council had asked for, and the committee had asked for a few months ago, which is progress on a pop-up bus lane in Four Corners. And I wonder if Mr. Conklin could summarize what he forwarded to you a few hours ago.
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. And I actually want to thank all of the committee members for their advocacy for this, some during pandemic when these opportunities were very obvious. Others have mentioned that we need to do things along the way while we're building the BRT network where we can to make priority. So this is, I think, really a reflection of the guidance we've received from this committee over the last couple of years in this program. The memo we sent essentially said a lot of what Glenn just said, but the specific things to add are that we have better ideas of the costs for implementing these and a couple of the procedural steps with the state, both from a regulatory point of view and their approval of actually implementing this. And we've had great interaction with Better Buses Coalition, members of your staff and other advocates for implementing this, and are trying to improve these designs based on the input they got, and are looking forward to really getting this on the ground, most likely first in Germantown, where we have a great deal more control over what we do, and demonstrating that we can make these changes and not create a chaotic situation for traffic and really advantage bus movements in and out of places where there's a lot of buses. In the specific element of Four Corners, we had the work underway on downtown Silver Spring, Wheaton, and Germantown already when you've asked us to do that. So it's just a little bit behind in terms of our making progress on it, but now catching up with all the other steps we're going through to get the approvals to do this work. And we did unfortunately discover that doing this is a little more expensive than we had hoped, and that's part of the reason you have this CIP before you. And I think this is an excellent way to make much more progress, much more rapidly on having better bus service through the county. So that's my thoughts on it, Glenn. Thank you.
And last thing I'd add, the intent, I think, of the department is that this is not just a one-year thing. This is a current program. They're just not ready to recommend a program for FY23 or the later years yet. Presumably, that would come in the next CIP. The question is, do you have any follow-up on the Four Corners project, or otherwise, are you in agreement with my recommendation for this project?
I just want to compliment MCDOT here. I think this is as you said, this is the kind of thinking that we've all been looking for, and there's so many ways that we can move the ball forward, and it's awesome to see a little bit more non-traditional thinking here. So I like the letter we got and want to get behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have some general questions. It's been alluded to that these lanes will be in place for a while, and so I'm just curious what the expected life expectancy of those lanes would be.
Well, our expectation is that these are permanent installations.
So a precursor.
Yes.
Okay. And then
I'm sorry, Councilmember Glass. We had toyed with the idea of doing things on a temporary basis, but what we learned is that the materials create hazards. What some of the jurisdictions have done with short-term painting of lanes ends up causing slip issues and other things we wanted to avoid. And the temporary traffic control devices, cones and barrels, consume too much space in the road and require constant monitoring to make sure they don't end up in the wrong places. In those temporary situations, all temporary traffic control is less safe than permanent traffic control. So we decided that if we're really going to invest the time and energy to do these things, we need to do it like it's there forever.
No, clearly gets us. That clearly gets us closer to the true BRT vision, right? That we have, and that the county executive has long espoused. So, and then most of the cost it's the infrastructure, it's the paint, and some of those other things, or you just?
It's the paint, but the paint is more than paint. It's paint that's durable under lots of wheel stress and has material in it to keep it non-slip. And is applied, with a heat treatment. So it's paint, but it's more than paint.
Got it. And then let me ask, what has State Highway Administration? What are their thoughts about this? Because I know there's been a tussle, to use that word.
A little bit. They have some concerns about the traffic impacts of this, and we've seen a lot of movement from State Highway, real progress with their willingness to do the University Boulevard bikeway treatment that's getting in place now, the road diet on Old Georgetown Road that they did over the winter. So I think we can probably overcome those traffic flow related concerns. And the other is more of a federal regulatory issue, where they have to approve the use of this as an experimental treatment, but they're interested in doing that and then following us as test applications to see how it goes.
Great. So those are the high-level questions. And as Glenn mentioned, I have a question about Four Corners. Last time we talked, I had specifically stated some concerns with Route 29 as it passes the Beltway and rides along next to Blair High School. And so can you restate what the concerns are again for that particular area?
I can't restate your concerns, but I can restate what our concerns were.
Okay, so yes, fair point. So I had asked for a better roadway there, right, and to actually have a dedicated lane there, and you all had expressed concerns. So can you restate what those concerns were, and if that has been mitigated in this updated proposal?
Yeah, very, very well. We're about halfway through that work with more input from advocates that have given us other ideas. The concerns that we had there were that the existing bus stop, flash stop, isn't in a location that allows a good transition to where a lane would be provided. So we've been working on some alternate layouts for how red paint might be applied in that area. And there were some issues with the access to Blair High School itself that were unresolved. So we haven't solved those problems yet, Councilmember, but we're still working on them. And we've engaged with our colleagues in the planning department to help us do the concept plans for all of these areas. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, because I'll just close in saying that I know that particular area, the Four Corners, has always been a tricky area for bus rapid transit, not only because of the road design that you're alluding to, or that I know to be true, but I know that there have been some residents who have not been favorable to the plan. And so I'm just trying to figure out through this conversation what is the structural barriers that might exist, and what are some other external factors that might have been factored in.
Yeah, well, at this point, our barriers are technical in what the solution is, and we have not been to a community to share an idea of reusing the road differently yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that info.
Okay, so is the committee agreeable with this project with the amendments that I'm recommending? Provisions.
Yep.
Okay. The last project for this packet is Great Seneca Science Corridor transit improvements. You recall earlier this year, the executive recommended $1.5 million to plan and design 4 routes that would serve as an interim to the Corridor Cities Transway. And with the ARPA funding, he's recommending adding another $10.6 million in fiscal years 22 through 24 to build 2 of the 4, or to implement the improvements needed for 2 of the 4 routes, the pink line and the lime line. We're getting into all kinds of colors now. And I'm recommending approval of that.
I bet we're good.
Love this project.
Okay.
Great
Sounds
job, team.
All right, that's it for agenda item 1.
Right.
Agenda item 2, this is the follow-up on the general fund. The only thing is Mr. Jawando's proposal, which we postponed till today, and hopefully Mr. Jawando's on. He has 4 proposals. He has four recommendations. One is to double the budget for the Safe Routes to School program. Part of that's in the operating budget, another $150,000 there, and doubling the money in the pedestrian safety program by $200,000. Again, only for FY22. His hope is that it could be doubled also in later years, but we take that up next year with a full CIP. Secondly, he's recommending funding for facility planning for a new sidewalk on Norwood Road in Cloverly between New Hampshire Avenue and Norbeck Road. The original estimate I got for that was $750,000, but I understand from the mill that there's a new estimate of $500,000 for that. DOT can correct me if I'm wrong. Thirdly, he's recommending that the sidewalk program minor projects have language in it which says that a priority should be given to projects that are providing for safe routes to schools. And fourthly, he's recommending a study to look at the what would be needed to provide pedestrian access to all schools. And the estimate from DOT was $100,000. Michael Paler is the division chief for traffic engineering, is here, and this program is under him. And he sent you a memo about 2 hours ago, which had a lot more detail about this. And at this point, I may turn over to Mr. Jawando and
Well, Glenn, can you hold it a second?
Sure. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So I've spoken to Director Conklin about this, Deputy Director Wolanin, and read Mr. Paler's memo and talked to Councilmember Jawando. I think it might be good to start at the beginning, and if we can get maybe some feedback from Mr. Conklin and Mr. Paler on the Safe Routes to School program, the overall need, and then react to the proposal. My understanding of this from, years in this committee, is that we have, I think we're all concerned about Norwood Road. We're all concerned about all kinds of roads around the county where school children are walking next to a high-speed road without a sidewalk. And the whole point of the program was to do some sort of more objective, more global assessment of our risk that students are bearing on their way to school, so that we could have a sort of rational and prioritized, triaged list of school projects to fund. And when I spoke to Mr. Wolanin, I think it seems like the first need is to complete the study that the countywide assessment, so we could weigh the risk on Norwood Road versus the risk on many other roads, and then ideally, I think, especially next year, regardless of what we do this year, make a big infusion of investment into a properly prioritized list next year once we have it. Director Conklin.
Thank you, and I'll let Michael describe Mr. Paler, describe his summary of this program to you. But yes, the one recommendation I think was $100,000 allocation, and what that would do is it would pull the sidewalk component out of the school safety reviews that are done incrementally and make that done as a one-time activity, so that we would have those locations within the school walk sheds that needed sidewalk identified, and then could prioritize them based on the type of street, the level of traffic, the amount of walking to the school, and other factors to prioritize them as you suggested. But I'll let Michael describe the rest of the activity that has been suggested by Councilmember Jawando, whose interest in this we absolutely appreciate.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Chris, and thank you, Chair Hucker, Council Member Glass, and Council Member Reamer, and also Council Member Jawando. And so I'm trying to figure out exactly to where to place us, but maybe I'll just start kind of from the beginning and drill through. You know, again, based on some of the information that was contained in the email that I sent, the phase one assessments were done some time ago. The phase one assessments were targeted for a plethora of improvements, a plethora of issues or situations in the school walk sheds. You know, we mentioned infrastructure, drop-off pickups, geography where the schools were located. And then at the conclusion of those phase one assessments, and so those phase one assessments were originally targeting just for the frontage area of schools. So they were relatively limited in their scope. So the phase two assessments then expanded those assessments to the school walk sheds, which are defined by MCPS and based on MWCOG, some of their mappings. But anyway, the radius associated with elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, which are incrementally increased because we figure, or the determination, that walkers were more mature as they got older. And so again, when those phase two assessments are entered into, the evaluations are much more in detail. They look at the network inventory, they look at traffic controls and traffic control device assessments in that walkshed area, operational and safety issues, review of crash reports to determine where there are specific safety issues in that walkshed area. And then, of course, as we look at those assessments, as we looked at those assessments previously, the equity emphasis area, and I made mention to that when I talked about the MWCOG mapping, but the equity emphasis area, and when those phase one improvements were, those phase one assessments were actually done, those were some of the ways that we were prioritizing these locations for improvements. But originally, again, as we know from looking at our general fund monies and our CIP fund monies, the improvements initially were targeted, were basically marking and signing improvements, and then if there were opportunities for small scale sidewalk ramp or sidewalk construction activities, those were included in there. But we were again talking about a pot of money in the realm of about $150,000, and then of course the CIP monies for the pedestrian safety, that money was used for actual construction, and at $200,000, the opportunity to look at many areas or many school areas was really limited by the amount of funding. So I guess that's basically, I'm not sure exactly how much more you want me to talk about this.
The only other thing I'd supplement is that you've completed about, I'm sorry, I lost the number.
Yeah, probably about, well, we said 30 out of the 170 or so schools outside of the municipal areas. And I appreciate that, Chris. So we've done a small portion, and we, again, according to, as we stated in the memo, we're looking at an assessment, school assessments of about 10 per year. And so they take about 3 months to complete. And so again, with that, using that cadence, or at that cadence of completing the assessments, it would take us a good bit of time, over a decade, to go through all the schools and complete the assessments. And then the other side of that is making sure, one of the other drawbacks is if we are doing assessments and we don't actually get those areas constructed, we've determined that about 20%, in the realm of about 20%, that there are some changes to those school walk sheds. So if we do an assessment this year and we don't get it to construction for 5 years, we can expect to see about a 20% change in the assessment. And so oftentimes we'll have to go back and do some cleanup work to make sure that walk shed is fully vetted out based on the pedestrian needs. So.
And you can get through the whole county for $100,000?
So the $100,000, Chair Hucker, would be for, I guess we'd call it a desktop survey, and we would do a hard and dirty look at the sidewalk network in all of the school walk sheds and make a determination as to where the gaps were. And so we would say, here are the gaps, and then we at trying to figure out how to take those to construction and keep in mind. So the simple answer is that's what we would do, and yes.
But we'd have an ability this time next year, once you complete this study, the assessment, to have a ranking of all the schools, not just 10 per year or whatever, but all of them, so we know where we get the greatest bang for the buck in terms of safety investments, correct?
Or filling sidewalk gaps. It's pulling that
Right.
sidewalk gap component out of the overall assessment for each school.
Right, we're pulling this, yeah, so there would be, like I said, for the fully orbed assessment, there are other matters that we are looking at to make sure that the safety is comprehensively evaluated that wouldn't be evaluated in this context. And so again, with the sidewalk desktop survey, there would be some pavement markings and signing improvements that would be needed where you're putting paved sidewalk at intersections of things like that. You may need additional traffic controls, but we would prioritize those based on need and funding.
The sidewalk gap data would be integrated with your current data on the need for paint, crosswalks, intersection improvements. Is that correct?
Just in those for the desktop survey, yes, they would all go together.
Right.
Yeah, we would limit that scope.
Councilmember Reamer.
When you say desktop survey, are you referring to looking at the satellite imagery essentially of the sidewalks around the area, or are you saying you would go out to the site and walk around?
It would be both, Councilmember Reamer, but I just figured I'd try to simplify it and say to make a distinction between our comprehensive assessments and what we would be doing for the $100,000.
Okay, I mean, I guess I'm surprised you can do 100 and how many schools do we have?
Well, we've got about 170.
170 schools.
And so some we could do by satellite imagery, and some of them we might need to go out and look at them. If the satellite imagery is obsolete, we'd have to say, if it's too far out of kilter, we'd say, well, do we really have this as a condition?
Let me see if I can help clear it up a little bit. I mean, what Michael's doing in these phase 2 assessments is a lot of observation work about the behavior of motorists, pedestrians, and how the schools operate within that infrastructure. We are not saying we can do that for 170 schools.
Correct.
With this increment of money. What we're saying is we can use the sidewalk inventory that we completed last year and some verification work to identify where sidewalk gaps are.
I see.
And then based on the characteristic of where those gaps are in relationship to the school or other high traffic areas, then prioritize those sidewalk gaps to be addressed. And we're pulling that work kind of forward from the overall school assessments. So the school assessments are going to continue. You know, there's another element before you to accelerate that as well, to cut the timeline down by half. But that work will continue because there's a lot that is more than just the sidewalk presence or absence that defines the safety of the walkshed to those schools.
And when you say,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just want to chime in and frame it at some point, but go ahead.
I was just going to ask, when you say sidewalk gaps, do you mean like sort of literally, like there's a sidewalk here and it's missing there, or do you just mean looking at the area around and seeing which access roads don't have sidewalk?
Some of both. Is it there
some of
or
both.
not there, or are there gaps in that network? Yeah.
Thanks.
And Chris, this follows just last year we did the sidewalk inventory. So why wouldn't that, I didn't understand Emil's answer yesterday, why there are gaps. And if there are gaps, why we're not aware of them if we just did a countywide inventory.
Well, that's actually a very good question. We've done the county-wide inventory, so we have the information,
Right.
But we haven't yet analyzed the information in relationship to the school walk sheds to know which gaps are in the school walk sheds. And then we haven't done the work to say which of those are really important to address sooner and which of those are, there's not as big a hazard created by the lack of sidewalk in that location. So that sidewalk inventory feeds directly into this work.
It's a matter of overlaying the school walk shed map over the sidewalk inventory, correct?
Yes, and then assessing the adjacent traffic characteristics and the importance of that location in terms of the walk shed. Yeah.
Okay. Will, please jump in.
Thank you. I appreciate all the prep work here, the planning that's been done here in transportation. And it's one of the reasons, just on this point, that I proposed both the money for the study and it kind of came out of this conversation, and the money to double the phase 2 assessments, because if back of the envelope, 170 schools, they've done 30, there's 140 left. An entering kindergartner would be out of high school before these assessments were completed under the current pace. And so, that I think we all agree that that's not acceptable. And so I think we need to do both. The assessment's critical, and I appreciate Director Conklin and Mr. Paler, Chief Paler, bringing up the point that this would just pull out the sidewalk piece, which is a critical component. And I know some of you all may have seen this, but the area around Blake High School is one of many. But when I posted this and sent the letter over, we heard from folks Magruder and Seneca Valley and some middle school areas, and so you certainly need the countywide assessment. But I do think that I know that the Blake High School is an equity area, and you have large numbers of students, high percentage of Black and brown students walking on a very dangerous road, multiple times during the day, after school, before school, at the end of school. And I actually had families reach out to me and say that, this has been something going back to 2011 or 12 or 13 that people have been advocating for. So, I understand we have a tight budget, but that's why I think it sounds like everyone agrees on the study. I do think we should look at this potentially putting on the reconciliation. The committee should, and then subsequently the council putting on the reconciliation list the doubling of the phase 2 assessments, because there's more, as we said, there's more that goes into those safety assessments. For example, on Norwood Road, posted speed limit is 40 miles an hour, but people are going 50, 55 miles an hour frequently. There's very narrow areas there. That's a speed factor that goes into the phase 2 analysis, among other things. I know Mr. Parlow could talk about that. So I just wanted to frame that of why put the multiple requests in there. Realize that we probably won't be able to do all of it this year, and agree with the council president and chair's point that once we have this sidewalk assessment, we can come back in CIP next year and hopefully do a lot more on both sides. But I do think it would make sense to try to accelerate the phase 2 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll pause there. Yeah.
Mr. Glass.
Thank you. I want to thank Councilmember Jawando for raising this issue and writing his memo and advocating for it, because it's absolutely necessary. And I know that we all have put a lot of attention and focus on Vision Zero, and a lot of that is reflected in the county executive's budget. And I, again, want to appreciate his dedication in terms of this budget, dedicating funds towards these efforts. And while Councilmember Jawando, your recollections of people in the greater Colesville and the Blake area, sharing with you, the reality is, in the year 2020, when many of us were working from home, and by the looks on this Zoom, many of us are still working from home, at least today. We had a record number of people killed and injured on our streets. We had 18 people killed in 2020 and slightly more than 500 who were seriously injured. And so this is a real problem. And again, I appreciate this proposal, trying to figure out how to move it forward in a more expeditious manner, right? Because clearly there are funds dedicated, but it's not enough. And earlier this year in January, I hosted a Vision Zero town hall, and I think all of you were there. And one of the 2 breakout groups was specifically for the safe routes to school. And it was a very robust conversation about a lot of the same schools that were just referenced, whether it was Seneca Valley or Blake. And then there were 2 others specifically that people recognize need attention. And so, all of that is to say that I clearly support these efforts. And I just want to make sure that that they are done in an equitable way, not just looking at the map and recognizing the equity emphasis areas, but the statistics and the logistics that go into these processes too. And so I appreciate staff outlining how these are processed, using all the different determinations, including the Council of Governments equity area analysis, which is another bill, a snow shoveling bill, which I've introduced and believe you all are supportive of that too, which looks at those emphasis areas, but that also takes into consideration some other data points. And so bottom line is I support these efforts, but I'm cognizant of the processes in which how we get there. And so I'm not quite sure if Councilmember Jawando was. Yeah. Can you refine where you are? Yeah.
So what I was saying, and thank you for Councilmember Glass, what I was saying is that if I'd modify the proposal, I mean, we should do, Norwood Road is dangerous today, and so are others. We should do them. But in light of this information we received kind of today, more of an update, do the 100,000 for the sidewalk analysis. But I would also recommend putting the overall Safe Routes to School Phase 2 analysis money, doubling that, because again, that serves the county-wide system. And then, if it makes it through reconciliation, we'll see. But I would pull back for now, the $500,000 Norwood Road study, in the hopes that once we get this information, we can, quickly put some things back into the CIP there and other places that will be identified through the process.
Thank you for that. And so I would, motion that I would motion to support that. And I'll say that yesterday I drove by Blake High School. I was up in Olney at MedStar celebrating Nurses Day, National Nurses Day. And so I saw exactly the road that is outside Blake and the lack of any infrastructure there. So clearly the need is real, but just wanting to make sure that we do a fair analysis, and it sounds like you're open to that. So.
And Chris, if we did double the Safe Routes to School, do you have projects to spend the money on now that are already in your assessment?
Yeah, we have schools identified and gaps identified already.
Great. Okay, so that's a motion. Is there a second, Hans?
Yeah, enthusiastically. It's been a long-standing focus for me, and appreciate the modulated tech here. And I've also seen students walking in the shoulder there, and it raised a lot of alarm. We've been working for years to try to get this same kind of problem addressed at Clarksburg High School. It's taken forever because of state highways. This is a county road, so it might be easier, but this is not the only place where kids are walking on shoulders to get access. So, I think it's bad for everybody. I mean, the kids are at risk, and then it's terrifying when you're driving. You come around the corner, and you see people in a situation that you think is really not safe, and just contributes to a general sense of, chaos. So I'd love to see this get addressed. Anyway, we'll have to figure out what the right approach is. It's a really long road without sidewalks. So, figuring out the details there is going to be challenging, and, there's a long way to go. But
one of the things that came up there's the bus stop, the lack of a bus stop there, there's one at the school, but there's not for that 1.4 miles or so from New Hampshire to Blake, so that's another part of the
yeah. So good.
And my understanding is that the committee then wants to add $250,000 to the operating budget, $100,000 for the study, and $150,000 to double the operating budget portion of Safe Routes to Schools, as well as adding $200,000 to the CIP for the pedestrian safety program project. Did I get that correctly?
Sounds right. That sounds right to me. But I'm
Okay.
not.
No, right.
Now, if that's true, again, you have to go back to the rules about adding money. Not the CIP money is it's a different process, but the 250,000 for the study and for doubling the operating part of Safe Routes to Schools. The question is whether or not you want to find savings in the general fund for transportation to offset that, or leave it to the council. If you wanted to do the former, my suggestion would be that you further reduce the amount set aside for roadway patching. The executive is recommending a 3% reduction, and to get the other $250,000, it'd be a 5.5% reduction. So that's one thought. That's one way of essentially offsetting the increase of 250,000.
I unfortunately don't have an alternative recommendation, but given the cut already to that fund, I wouldn't want to see that cut further. But I have no answer for you.
Yeah, the other area I know there was a cut in was residential, was the slurry seal, the residential resurfacing that's in the operating budget. But I believe that would have been a deeper percentage cut because the amount there is less. So that's why I'm not advocating this. I'm just saying, again, if the committee wants to find this offsetting savings, this would be a place to do it. Otherwise, you can just turn it over to the council.
Maybe we could put that on as an option. You know, I mean, if we put the savings on as an option to take.
Well, I have to report it. I mean, I'm reporting it as a offsetting cut, and
Right.
that's the way it would appear.
An offsetting cut, you can report it as an offsetting cut, but not one that. It's not like the transit fund, I think, where it's going to happen pretty much if the committee recommends it. Just because there's no other way to spend the money. This would be actually.
Why not just put it on the rec list, Glenn?
There is no rec list.
Well, there is category.
That's not the case. That's a misstatement of my memo. That's not the case.
Well,
there was a proposal that was rejected, Glenn.
Okay. Well, my understanding is that because it's this way, it's a different way of looking at the rec list.
We've been adding things in the Fed committee on a record.
I know.
The only committee is being done this way. Yeah.
That's just not correct, Glenn. That was a proposal that was rejected.
Here's again, I talked to Ms. Marlene Michelson about this before the meeting. You have two choices. You can either make a cut within the committee or not. If you don't, then the council staff as a whole has to come up with a total amount of money to fund those things. But looking at your memo and the direction is that there is no rec list where you basically say, here's all the things we want to fund. And at the end, we find out what things we can fund and what things we cannot.
No, we had an explicit discussion about that, Glenn. I can assure you.
Okay, well.
Remember, like it was yesterday. And I'm in favor of having a rec list. I haven't heard anybody being against that except the staff recommendation. So
I'm not opposed to rec list. I'm just reacting to what I thought was the guidance looking at your memo. Okay, fine. So we will show the question is, do you want to show a reduction or not? If not, that's fine.
I think it'd be good to put it on the rec list as a reduction, because we can put additions and reductions on the rec list.
Right. Sure.
Okay.
And I suppose we shouldn't say rec list because I think our colleagues on the council would not appreciate hearing that a committee has decided there is a rec list. We've all been using this convention of tier 3, and I think it's terminology, but I would recommend that we continue to use our tier 3 terminology, and we can put a savings and an addition on tier 3.
Right. And again, one more suggestion on that. The council work session is not till May 17th, and Mr. Conklin just said he didn't have anything handy right now. If he has another idea that he could put forward, the council could talk about that on May 17th.
He could go shake the trees. Go shake the trees.
Right. Okay.
Great.
And the only other thing in Mr. Joanna's proposal is he wanted to include language in the sidewalk programs minded projects to have a priority for safe routes to schools. What I'm suggesting is maybe that's something I could put off until next year once we have the full CIP. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Then we're finished with number 2, and then we turn over to Carlos Camacho for the parking.
All right. Good afternoon.
The committee. Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can run through this quickly. So This is a follow-up to the session from last week. The committee requested additional options to the county executive's recommended operating budget, in which he proposed rate increases in the parking lot districts, all three parking lot districts, or an expansion of enforcement hours. So like Dr. Orlin explained, with the use of ARPA funds, the committee could identify an amount that could be used when ARPA funds become available later in FY22, but they would have to identify an offsetting amount to be used from the general fund to create their FY22 budget. So those two amounts. Now getting into the options that staff identified. So the first option is to reject the county executive's recommended fare and enforcement increase and add $884,308 from the general fund to category 3 to basically fill the gap where none of the PLDs will have a negative fund balance. Unfortunately, OMB, I spoke with OMB today, and there's a slight complication with that option because Bethesda would end with a negative fund balance like the other PLDs, but they have a bond restricted reserve. And so they would fall under that bond restricted reserve. So we would have to check with bond counsel to see if the amount that the committee could choose to put in the budget for the FY22 budget could be used in some way and would not affect that bond restricted reserve amount. So we would have to check with bond counsel on that. Then the other two options are to delay the recommended fare and enforcement increases. The first one would delay implementation until January 2022. Wheaton would still go negative, so we would have to add $115,325 from the general fund to category 3 to offset that gap. The other two PLDs would be projected positive. The third option would further delay implementation until April 2022, in case both Wheaton and Silver Spring would projected in the year negative because we were assuming a 75% reduction in revenue that would come from that rate increase. So the overall amount that would need to be added to category 3 from the general fund would be $313,655. So
Carlos?
I think the internet doesn't
Sorry
want
about
to talk PLDs either.
We lost you. You might want to just restate what you were saying.
hello? Oh, Jesus.
Nope, we got you, Carlos. Before you start swearing, we hear you. Don't.
Maybe turn your video off and you can finish your comments.
Ground control to Carlos Camacho. All right.
It's the PLDs.
It's PLDs, man. We'll give him a minute to log back in, I guess.
He's probably been sitting there for 2 hours with no problems too, by the way. And then as soon as it comes up,
I'm glad to see Councilmember Joanna is going to stay here for the exciting PLD conversation.
Well, I'm just on my way out, but enjoy.
Your Zoom is broken. You can't log off fast enough.
Your meter has expired.
Okay, folks.
Not bad.
All right, sorry about that. Got disconnected. So I kind of went through the three options, at least for the operating budget portion of it. I was going to stop there and see what the committee
Carlos,
had any questions or.
Second half of the third option.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
I think we missed the second half of the third option, the April option.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So the second half of the April option, so delay implementation of the rate increases until April 2022, would leave the Silver Spring and Wheaton PLD negative. So the committee would have to add 313,655 of general fund dollars to category 3, and then assume that ARPA funds, when made available in FY22, later in FY22, could backfill those costs.
Well, I'll just say I sort of like option 2. I have heard Councilmember Reamer saying, this later on this summer, we're going to be reopened. Everybody's going to be vaccinated. I think the PLD budget issue is real. And so is the need to not slow down the recovery. But I'm certainly hopeful that while the recovery will still be underway in July and we'll be reopening, by January, I'm hopeful we'll be relatively back to normal. People will be vaccinated. They'll be going out to dinner in Bethesda, for example, and they could be paying a normal parking rate to do that by January. And if I'm wrong, if we're all wrong, I know we all hope for the same thing. We can revisit it then. But it seems a little rash or presumptuous or something to extend the freeze on the increase all the way to April at this point if we don't need to. We don't expect to be still closed down at that point. Colleagues?
Sure, I'll hop in there. So I want to take a step back for a sec, right? Because this is the second time, in a week or last week, we had this conversation and put it on pause to have a conversation today. So the reason we're having this conversation was because as I'm just looking at the packet, the authorizing legislation from 2004, right, gave the council the ability to set these rates. So presumably it was the county executive before that. Dr. Orland, can you shed some historical perspective as to
why this happened?
In 2004, yeah.
Yeah, what happened was for up until 2004, the county executive set transit fares and parking fees and parking fines. And it was done by, I believe, executive regulation and maybe method 3. So the council didn't really have a role. When the council reviewed the budgets, the T&E particularly reviewed the budgets for parking in the 2 or 3 years actually before then, it felt that the rate should be increased. And so it based its recommendations in the budget based on that, but it depended upon the executive following suit on that. And this was County Executive Doug Duncan, and he said no, that he didn't want to do that, and it was his authority. So the council, after 3 years of trying to go through this back and forth, said, all right, fine, we'll pass a law and we'll set it ourselves. Because effectively it was like, it's not a tax, but it's a fee, but it has major implications for the budget. And that's why it was done.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. I did not know that part of Montgomery County history. It doesn't surprise me because here we are, having this conversation, as I said, a continuation from last week. So the concern I had last week that Ms. Beck had brought to the attention, and that was, just reiterated, was the bonding. And the services and the level of debt that's tied to this. And so clearly it is, there are pressures, outside pressures requiring us to do this, whether we want to or not. And clearly there are policy reasons why people want want increased rates to be done as well. Not to minimize that at all, but the external pressures can't be ignored. And it is more complicated than simply raising a fee, as you just stated. So I think the recommendation of a mid-year adjustment makes sense. But I think coming back to the more general problem with the PLDs in general, I don't know if this is something that we can, in the future tie to inflation, right? So it's set, and as the needs, the regional economic needs demand, that is one way to set the rates as well. There are other ideas that are floated out there that have been shared with us, but we can't keep having this conversation, especially when some of these parking lot districts are insolvent. And so by not raising them, we are creating other economic problems and just kicking it down the road. So tough decisions, I understand. Not having the ability right now to have a total policy change that would be required, I would be supportive of that second proposal and get to work and figuring out how to make these solvent so that we don't have to keep having these conversations. Mr. Chair, turn it back to you.
Well said. Councilman Reamer, where are you on this weighty matter?
Yeah, I can follow your lead here on option 2. Go with that.
All right. So is that unanimous then?
I think it is.
All right. Okay, there are 2 other issues that the committee must make a decision on, or should make a decision on. So the second issue is the PLD transfers. So this was an addendum that I added to the packet last week, and I briefly went over it. So there was a original loan made from Silver Spring to Bethesda in FY16. Jump forward to the FY21 operating budget resolution. In that resolution, it stipulated that Bethesda repay the previous $3 million to Silver Spring, and then Silver Spring again transfer $3 million to Bethesda, who would then pay it back in FY22. Given the situation we are in, that doesn't seem like a viable option. So council staff is recommending approving repayment of the $3 million transfer to Silver Spring in FY23 and FY24 as presented in the county executive's budget, but also add some additional flexibility by stipulating repayment no later than FY27, given that we don't really know the financial future at all. So, yes.
Right. I agree. We've been putting this off year after year, and it just needs to get addressed.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Glass nodding. Councilmember.
This is, sorry. So we were talking about.
So this is on page.
Repaying Silver Spring in 23-24.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
No objection.
Great. And then the last item, so assuming that the committee approves so council staff recommended approval of all the county executives recommended changes to the FY21 through 26 CIP. The only change that council staff recommended was rejecting a $1.9 million increase from FY25 to FY26 in the Bethesda facility renovations project, again, just due to fiscal uncertainty in the PLD, and recommends revisiting these increases next year in the context of the FY23 through 28 CIP.
Chair Hucker, I think last time I recommended the opposite, but it doesn't matter a great degree which you select because you'll be reassessing this in the full CIP either way. And the needs for these renovations isn't going to disappear in the next fiscal year. So we will have to grapple with how to address that need, whether you've put the money in the cash flow in the 6-year plan now or not.
Okay. Colleagues, fine?
Yeah.
Okay, without objection.
So you're agreeing with the staff's recommendation, though? Okay.
Staff recommendation, yep. Carlos, see how fast we can get things done when you're here? This is good.
That is
We're done.
it.
I think we're done.
Well, quick comment on the last item there, the long-term issue.
Oh.
We really do need to get out of this process and find a better one. And to me, the rates should be set to maintain the availability of parking. And if there is a way that we can express that and demonstrate that that's how it's done, and then kind of have variable rates, or just have a more autopilot system based on actual usage, it might be a way for us to get out of having to set these rates manually year after year. I can see why the council might have said, we got to take this power back, because if the executive wouldn't raise rates adequately, then there's not enough money in the PLD to fund the infrastructure improvements in the area. And like having quality infrastructure there funded partially by appropriate parking rates is a very sound policy. So, if there is a way to work towards a more automated system, I think it'd be beneficial, because it's just been a heck of a struggle over the years to find the right balance. And, I don't think there's really an appreciation for what a policy is. And people, I think our community advocates, I don't think there's really an agreement about why rates might be one level or another. And we could have that agreement. I think there can be a very strong foundation for how you set the rates. So just want to put in a plug for coming up with a bigger, better approach to doing this.
We're at the staff level, at the staff level, we're haven't started doing this yet, but we're sort of planning to have a major T&E Committee work session on the whole parking and urban district, frankly, also budget situation generally, providing some historic background, but also other models or whatever. Not a major study, but just major review of all of that sometime this fall. And that probably would be because we'd be involving the urban districts, because they're both tied, a joint T&E Fed meeting, if that's okay with the two committee chairs.
Councilmember Reamer, along the lines of what you said, when we've met with community groups and chambers on these issues, a frequent question we get is, why isn't there an expected escalation in this rate over time? Now, we can't reset it every year, because there's administrative procedures for doing that and signage and all kinds of stuff. But to have it be on a cycle that's more expected and routine, I think would benefit all of it, the users of the facility, plus those who run it, plus the council, who then doesn't have to be in the middle of arguments about whether the proposals are appropriate or not every single year.
Right. Like CIP, you could just do CIP years. Okay. Folks, are we
I think
done?
Good? Great.